Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Casual Sports Podcast. Once again, it's Thursday. We got college football. I'm Alec Renna. That's Matt Morrison and Michael Wolfgang in that order to the left there. Guys,
Yes,
how's
sir.
it going? Thursday?
Going
Excited for some
pretty
college
good.
football this weekend?
One more day.
One more day.
Hey, we're gonna get some Friday night action though, so don't worry. We got the Wolfpack and the Air Force Falcons tonight, which is gonna be the first game we're gonna talk about here in a second, though. But we got a big day ahead of us. College football. We got a little bit in the NHL, a little bit NBA, and Thursday night football is how we're gonna wrap up the show. So let's get right into our first segment here. We got Friday night, 9 p.m., 7-3 Nevada Wolfpack, 7-3 Air Force Falcons. This one, pretty big matchup for the Mountain West. These teams have been, very competitive this season. And you look at this game and you go, man, both these teams have about the same record. This is one doesn't really have a ton of things on the line. Nevada is in third place in the Mountain West West. Air Force, though, is in second place in the Mountain West Mountain. And if they want a chance of catching Utah State here in the final 2 weeks, they're going to need to make sure they win this game. And they're going to have to hope for a Utah State loss. Actually, they're going to need two of them. So if Utah State can beat Wyoming this weekend, which looks like they probably should, please silence your cell phones now. But
That wasn't me.
if Utah State can beat Wyoming this weekend or New Mexico next weekend, they'll be able to clinch that part of the Mountain West Mountain Division. So Air Force, they're on the outside looking in. They don't control their own destiny, but they still need a win here. So it's an important game for them. And, Nevada, they do sit in third place in the Mountain West West, and they're also one of those teams on the outside looking in. They lost to Fresno State, so that hurts them. And they need San Diego State to lose it twice and Fresno State to lose it once as well for them to get in. But at the moment, both teams need this win. So it should be a pretty fun one. And Friday night football, you can't really complain here with YSN covering high school football playoffs. Make sure to turn into those ones first before you head on over after those ones for this game tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Guys, what are your thoughts on this one coming into it?
I mean, like you said with Air Force, they're 7-3 and they don't control their own destiny. But when you don't control your own destiny, you need to win. That's the most important thing is to win. And I mean, with Nevada, they're playing some good. Both teams are really playing some good football. They're both 7-3. Nevada, we've been talking about a little bit on the show, but yeah, I mean, when you don't control your own destiny, you got to win.
I mean, Air Force is usually not really a good team, so it's good to see them at a 7-3 record.
I mean, the Armed Forces are playing pretty good this season.
Yeah.
I mean, besides Navy, but, that's expected. I mean, Army has been having some incredible games. I mean, obviously the game they had against Wake Forest where they put up 56 points. They've been putting a lot of offense up as well, and obviously see this Air Force team here at 7-3.
Yeah, Nevada, I mean, it's gonna be a good matchup. It's an even matchup, like I said, with the record-wise, and pretty much the way the teams have been playing so far, or to this point, they've been playing some similar football and some good football this time of year. So it's going to be a good one.
That's for sure. Nevada opened this game up at just a -1.5 point favorite. So it is expected to be that close. That just really bodes to how well these two teams play and just how similar they are. And I think the one big thing you look at is this game. You come into it, it's in Nevada. Nevada, they're undefeated at home, 5-0 at their home stadium. But Air Force is undefeated on the road. They're 4-0 in that category. So now you have somebody that has to give here. And sometimes you just have to give it to that home field advantage. Why don't we just go ahead and make picks right on it? I wanted to go with the Armed Forces here. I wanted to go Air Force, but you see 5-0 at home. The way this team is playing, they've been played close all season long. Every game has been a battle for them, and this is one of those battles they're going to have to come out on top of. Go 8-3. I'm taking the Wolfpack.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm gonna go the opposite way here. Good road team and Air Force. They picked up a big road win against Boise State earlier this season. I think they can come in and win a very contested football team or a very contested football game. I say they pull it off maybe by 3 or 7 points.
I'm going Nevada here. I think Air Force might come out putting a little too much pressure on themselves, trying to get the win that they need. To stay alive in the chase there. So I'm gonna go Nevada, and plus they're at home. I usually do like picking home teams, but yeah, I'm going Nevada.
Okay, well, how about we get right into what's probably being touted as the game of the weekend. Michigan State, number 7 in the country, taking on the number 4 Ohio State Buckeyes. Early battle for first place of the Big Ten East. Obviously, these next 2 weeks decide the Big Ten East champion. This is my game, the game I'm looking at. It should be, one of the biggest games college football sees all season long. And, I mean, we get down to this point of the year, everything sits on the line. And really also what sits on the line, not just Big Ten championship, but college football playoff, and it's all being held in the balance with both teams coming in with 1 losses, and you have a 1-loss Michigan behind them as well. So all 3 of these teams right now are just battling at the top of this division, and they've really been the 3 that have separated themselves from the field. I mean, 4th place in the Big Ten East is still Penn State, and they're just 3-4 in the division. So Ohio State, and Michigan have absolutely run terror all over this division so far this season, and it's coming down to the same 2 weeks it always does, it seems, with Ohio State football and Michigan State and Michigan, and Mel Tucker on the verge of potentially getting a 10-year extension with Michigan State to make him one of the highest paid head coaches in college football. I believe it's like at the moment it's like 10-year in total, making like $96 million per in total over those 10 years. So he's becoming a cemented coach there at Michigan State. He's obviously turned that program right around into what they want it to be, building a good culture. They like it, and they've really cemented that great winning culture this season. And you see that just in their record. This was a team coming off the last season. Everyone was like, oh, great, Michigan State, they're just that crap team again we saw in the early 2000s where they were just kind of down. They had the up at the early 2010s. And then you kind of felt, oh, well, D'Antonio's gone. That's the end of State as we know it. And here they are, second year with Mel Tucker, completely bouncing around, turning it into a vicious program that could run James Franklin out of Penn State with the amount of competition here. I mean, it's at least something we talked about on the show yesterday, but you go into this game, it's, a big Saturday game. The one thing that surprised me researching this game, Ohio State opened at home as a minus 19-point favorite. They're projected to win this one by nearly 3 touchdowns, and that's insane to me when you talk about this Kenneth Walker-led offensive onslaught they have, because you've seen Ohio State against a lot of good rushing teams struggle in a lot of big moments. They can control the line of scrimmage fairly well, but it's not good enough to stop a guy like Kenneth Walker, who's 3rd place in the Heisman rankings right now behind Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. This is one of the best running backs we've seen in football in recent memory. I mean, the way he can take over a game is in evidence with that Michigan game just a few weeks ago. Without his 4 or 5 touchdown effort in that one, they don't even come close to pulling that upset. And Michigan State is outside of the top 10 right now with 2 losses to both Purdue and Michigan. But Kenneth Walker turned the tide in that game, and he's turned the tide in about a dozen other games they've played in the last year and a half as well. This is one of the best, if not the best, running back of the season. The fact that Ohio State opens this big of an upset, or this big of a spread, it is astronomical to me. I know Ohio State's offense can score the lights out of you, but I haven't seen anything from their defense to say that they're going to be able to stop Kenneth Walker. I mean, I guess you can look at that game last week against Purdue and go, oh, well, they dominated David Bell instantly. They had nowhere to run the football, but Purdue didn't really have a running style of offense. But to me, if you want to see what Ohio State does against the rush, Nebraska took it to them on the ground, and a lot of their big plays came on the ground with Adrian Martinez, and that's what kept them in the football game. You go Oregon, CJ Verdell ran all up and down this Ohio State defense. In the first game, Ibrahim from Minnesota ran all over Ohio State's defense. They've changed up schemes since those first 2 games, but it doesn't change the fact this defense has not been great against rushing offenses, and that's where I think Michigan State takes the advantage in this one. Ohio State is going to score. Their guys are going to get theirs because Michigan State's defense isn't phenomenal. It's good. It's really good, but it's not phenomenal, and you need to be phenomenal to stop an offense of Ohio State's caliber, and you don't get too many of those in college football, and they may just come down to a defense of Oregon, Alabama, and Georgia as the 3 defenses that potentially could stop this team. So you're going to have your offense counterpunch, and I think that's where Kenneth Walker comes in, and I think Kenneth Walker has a huge chance to cement his Heisman moment with a win here. And I don't think this should be a 19-point separation between these 2 teams. No. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, Alec, you talked about the Penn State game too when it was coming up. Like I joked most of the part. I knew Penn State was going to lose, but I was like, hey, they're going to lose by this X amount of points. But yeah, I mean, it normally doesn't happen when the spreads are this much. I know it's Ohio State at home. It's different when they're at home. But it seems like the last few times they've been this heavy favorite, 19, 20, 21 points, it's like a 10-point game. So, right. I mean, some teams find ways. I mean, like I said, with Penn State's defense is probably better than Michigan State's, but Michigan State can find something on defense. They can at least give themselves a chance in this game. And I'm looking at the spreads here. You said it's at 19 now and the over-under 68.5. I know 68.5 is a lot of points, but I would kind of look at taking that over because
I would take the under, actually. Look at Ohio State in that game against Penn State.
And Penn State has a top five defense. I don't know if Michigan State
I would say Michigan State has a top 15 defense. I mean, look at Nebraska. That's not a top 25 defense, and they held Ohio State quiet for a lot of that game. It was a late pull away for the Buckeyes in that one. That was a low-scoring affair. That is what I'm expecting to see out of Ohio State this week against a very, very, very good Michigan State team.
No, I'm not expecting a blowout at all, but
that's why I'm taking that under. I don't think this becomes a shootout with the rushing style of both of these teams. I mean, Ohio State, yes, their offensive passing game is lights out, but they win the football with Travion Henderson, number one.
Yeah, their offense
is over-unders are tough, but it's like I said, it's a lot of points, but I don't think it'd be crazy if somebody took it. Just depends.
Matt?
Their offense is going to put some points. I mean, they're going to run some points in this game. I truly believe that. Michigan State's defense may slow them down a little bit, but the main story is how is, Ohio State? I mean, we've seen that shaky type of defense, in the past couple of games. They have to stop Kenneth Walker, okay? Guys I really like that Denzel Burke. He had 10 solo tackles in that last game. That guy is amazing. And then Hickman is good too. Hickman had 5 solo tackles. Guys like that.
I think Hickman still leads the team in tackles this season as well. I mean, he's an absolute Ronnie Hickman is one of the best tacklers you have in college football right now. And you look at his stats, he's just blowing away the rest of the Buckeyes. Then you have Denzel Burke, a true freshman, mind you, who is absolutely lighting up wide receivers. I mean, he's the guy they charged with locking down David Bell most of that game. Until the one time David Bell actually had a big play, it was against Seven Banks, not Denzel Burke. This Burke kid is a future top 10 pick for Ohio State defensive backs. And you obviously see the way Ohio State can produce some really good defensive backs. I mean, Denzel Ward really is the most recent one, but Jeffrey Okudah has been improving as well in the NFL with the Lions. He's just on a bad defense. But I mean, you see the way Ohio State produces. I mean, this Denzel Burke is the next one of those guys. And Matt, as you were saying there with Haskell Garrett, I mean, the rascal, now that he's back, I think he was dealing with some injuries too, but he was limited snaps. He's going to be an integral part of stopping the rush, and they're going to need him to come up big. Ohio State has a great defensive line, but they don't have one guy this season that is really that, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young caliber player who just is lights out, really solidifies that defensive line and says, hey, you're not coming to my side of this line. Ohio State doesn't have that. They're a lot more balanced this season. I think they have been in past years, and I think that bodes well for them. But the other problem is they don't have that one defensive playmaker that can take over a game like you see with Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, or you go over to Jordan Davis with Georgia. Will Smith with Alabama, he's having a great season as well, and he's up in there in the Heisman rankings now too. So that's the one problem I have with Ohio State. They don't seem to have that guy that can take over games like they've had in the past, and that's what I'm worried about in this Michigan State game. They're going to need somebody to take over to slow down Kenneth Walker.
How about this Will Smith, man? The guy does a lot. I mean, he plays for 2 baseball teams. He's an actor. I mean,
this is Will Smith Jr. I believe.
Football.
It's a junior. Yeah, it's not. It's not the same.
But what are you guys' final thoughts here on this game? Obviously, I think we've talked a lot. Kenneth Walker, he's going to be the integral part. If Ohio State stopped Kenneth Walker, does Michigan State even stand a chance at that point if Kenneth Walker can't go?
Are you asking for predictions right now?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I think the offense truly runs through Kenneth Walker, okay?
So no Walker, no win?
I mean, it wouldn't be very good.
Okay, let me put it this way. No Walker, it makes it tougher to win. I'm not saying they can't, which I kind of am, but
I think I would say no Walker, no win for Michigan State. I don't think Peyton Thorne is that kind of quarterback that can pick apart Ohio State's defense. It is still a very solid zone defense, and going up against a guy like Seven Banks, who will be an NFL draft pick at some point here when he decides to declare, whether he goes first round or not. I don't think he'll go first round. I expect him a 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th round defensive back, probably on the later end of that. But when you got Denzel Burke, phenomenal cover corner, and the rest of this Ohio State defense, which it's not as great as we've seen in the past, but it's very young. It's a very solid core. And the way they play defense, this zone style that they've been running, it's designed to make quarterbacks think they have something open, and then it takes it away. The one thing you see when you can run this zone defense is that if you have a pass rush that can get there, by the time their wide receivers are even getting open, you have guys like Haskell the Rascal Garrett and JT Tuimoloau back there in that quarterback's face. And I don't think Peyton Thorne is that guy that can pick apart a defense like Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't think he is.
It takes a very talented quarterback to do that.
It takes a talented quarterback to beat anybody, honestly, to have a chance, and to do it if something happened with Kenneth Walker, like you're asking, and he is the next guy up, it's tough. And a lot of quarterbacks aren't built that way, and especially in college. That's, that they're learning to do this type of stuff in college, to perform when guys are down. And some guys can do it, most guys can't. So, and when you're doing it on an environment like this against an Ohio State team, it's tough. It's hard.
New game in Columbus this weekend. So, yeah, it should be a big one. And I think the one big thing you also have to look at is Michigan State's defense. They're going to be spread so thin in this football game if they can't get to C.J. Stroud, because you look at Ohio State's wide receiver courts. The one thing we've seen all season long, no one can keep up with them because most teams haven't most two really good corners that play lockdown coverage at most. That is a good defense. You expect two guys to be able to cover. Ohio State has the three of the top five wide receivers in college football this season, with Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and then Jackson Smith-Njigba. I mean, this is one of the best wide receiver corps I think college football has potentially ever seen at the college level. I mean, there's been some that have progressed once they get to the NFL and you go, oh man, that was a lethal duo in college, Jarvis Landry and Odell. But this trio potentially could be the greatest football ever sees. And I think that's the biggest problem with Michigan State's defense right now is who are you going to put on three different top tier wide receivers that could all be first round picks. That's
my point too. And I don't know if they can do that. And that's why I think for a good part of that Penn State game, they were able to keep it close because Penn State has good secondary. And obviously you can't stop the three-headed monster of the receiving core. You can try and limit it, and that's what Penn State did. They broke for some big plays, but for most of the game, they kept them in check. And I don't know if Michigan State's defense can do that. I mean, you mentioned they're probably top 15, maybe 20 at worst, but it's hard to do it against that group of guys. And like I said, it's hard to do it on the road too.
Yeah,
Well, how about we go into predictions here? I think it's pretty simple who I'm going with. I got the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm not confident about that minus 19-point spread, but I do love my Buckeyes, so I'm going with it here, and I hope they cover.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, do you want to go? Because I'm going to be kind of long.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going with Ohio State because I don't see them losing two at home in 1 year. I keep saying that. I said it with Penn State too, even though I picked Penn State for my team. I don't see them losing a second one at home this year. And I think, like I said, I think it'd be close. I don't like that 19-point spread. I'm with you on that one, but yeah, I'm going Buckeyes at home.
All right. Before I make my pick, I want to go back to the Michigan State versus Purdue game. Okay, Kenneth Walker still had a booming performance, 22 carries, 136 yards. But let's look at this Purdue offense. David Bell went 217 yards receiving, and Anthrop had 80 yards receiving. Then you go down another one. The next guy had 74 yards receiving. Okay, multiple touchdowns there. And this Purdue defense got to pressure on Thorne. He threw an interception. I mean, they got to him. Okay, they made him under pressure. They made him make mistakes, and they made that offense completely rely on Kenneth Walker. Okay, and that's good. That's not good. He can't carry this whole team by himself. And let's just keep in mind here, this Purdue team got blown out by Ohio State. Now just think what's going to happen in this game with this Ohio State defense. Okay, I know they're young, but this defense is probably going to be one of the best defense in all of college football in the next 2 or 3 years. We've seen that at potential, Alec. We talked about Burke. We talked about Haskell, Garrett. These guys are going to be insane, okay? I mean, they're going to be insane. This defense is going to go off against Kenneth. I mean, they'll probably not control Kenneth Walker too much, but they're going to control everybody else where all the weight is going to be on Walker's shoulders. And that's just going to be too much, especially with this high-scoring offense. I don't even want to get into the receivers with Garrett and Smith and the jig, but the guys are freaks. And then you have Chris Olave. It's insane. Buckeyes.
Yeah, and Chris Olave, who's felt like he's been there for like 10 years, but I mean, when is this guy going to leave? Like I feel like he's been there for a decade.
He came back for one final season. He wanted the championship with Ohio State. And frankly, I hope they can give it to him. He doesn't have the yards he's had before, but it's not hurting his draft stock at all because everyone sees what's around him and they know who he is, know what he's working with here. And I think everyone just continues to be impressed by this guy. And he has a very similar build, in my opinion, to Terry McLaurin. We've seen the way McLaurin's been able to tear up defensive backs already early in his career. So I think it's a bright future for Olave.
Kind of like a Curtis Samuel a little bit too.
Right. Well, how about we go on to our next game? This one, a big in Ohio rivalry, 5-5. Kent State, the Golden Flashes, coming off their first bowl win not too long ago. and they're going up against their fiercest rival, the Akron Zips, this Saturday at noon. Kent State, a 13.5-point favorite. They've won their last two matchups against their big rival, and this one, a pretty big rivalry in my family, too. I got my brother went to Kent State. My parents and my uncles went to Ohio, went to Akron there. So a lot of history in my book. But, I look at this Kent State team right now, and they're firing on all cylinders. You look at that 5-5 record for them, and a lot of other schools would look at 5-5 and go, oh, what a bad year. But that's not how Kent State looks at football. This is not an elite football program. I mean, you go back, I think it's 6 years ago, this was rated as the worst football program in FBS history. This is a program that has historically been absolutely hot, flaming, smoking, smelly garbage their entire history, and they're coming up on something. I think the biggest thing right now for Kent State too, undefeated when playing at home. And you love to see a team that has so many struggles year in and year out control home turf. You don't see that with Akron this year. They're 1-5 in conference play. Kent State in conference is 4-2. They've dominated the MAC East, and they're in second place right now, right behind Miami of Ohio, who, by the way, they face next weekend for a chance to go to the MAC championship in December. So this Kent State team, they're right on the cusp of everything they want to be. And, out of conference for these teams, this is where they get demolished. I mean, this team had Texas A&M, Iowa, and Maryland as their three of their 4 out of conference games. Their other one was against, the FCS, so they had a tune-up game, and they won that 60-10. But this team had such a difficult out of conference schedule. You look at 5-5 and go, all right, take 3 of those games away, and that's what they're doing right now in the MAC. This is a very physical, dominant program, and I'm sure they would love to get some of those players back. They've had a recent, seasons. I mean, they had the running back duo known as Thunder and Lightning that were absolutely electric for them. I mean, they couldn't win football games when they had those guys there, but this is such a fluid team, and they're so good playing together. And if this was any other year, I think I would take Akron football based on the fact my family has a little bit more ties to Akron than Kent. Sorry to my brother out there, but this season I've got to go with the Golden Flashes. I'm taking Kent State. It's on the road in Akron. Should be a big, fun environment. This is a huge rivalry. People always show up for it, no matter the records. But I got Kent State. It's not too often I'll pick the Golden Flashes over Akron, but I'm doing it here.
I'm going to go Kent State here, too. I mean, they've lost to good teams. I mean, they lost to Big Ten teams. They've lost to Iowa and, Maryland. But they had some big wins against Ohio and, NIU as well. Those are big, solid wins right there. And I expect them to come in here and just cruise.
And Alec, I know you wanted to bring this one up because you said it's a rivalry, and it is. I mean, I don't think it's talked about around here that much because, I mean, we're sandwiched in between some bigger schools. But, I mean, Kent State 5-5. This might, like you said, this might be their best era in their history. It probably is because they won the bowl game 2 years ago. They're 5-5 now. They're playing some better football. But Akron, I know they're 2-8, but like you said, rivalry games. There's always something with rivalry games that no matter what the records are, it's always close. Upsets can happen, but I don't see it happening. I'm going Kent.
You can't blame them. I mean, Akron has played some tough teams. They got blown out by Ohio State. I mean, it's insane. You look at the way this series has gone, and obviously you have Kent State on a 2-game hot streak where they won 69-35 last year in Kent. They won 26-3 last time they played in Akron. Before then, though, it was 4 straight games for Akron. Then they split it back and forth, 3 straight for Kent, 3 straight for Akron. This is one of the most back-and-forth rivalries we have in the Zips right now. They hold the lead in the all-time series 35-26 in this one that dates all the way back to 1923. So this is a very storied rivalry with, a couple of breaks in there, but this is just one of those big games. If you're in the Akron Kent area, people are talking about this because you have a lot of people that graduated from those 2 universities in the area, and that's why you get such a big turnouts, because all the people that don't go to football games every week, they go to this one because it's fun to go to Infocision Stadium. Akron has a phenomenal football stadium for the state of their program. It is probably one of the best stadiums you will see in the state of Ohio, and even in FBS. They have a really phenomenal facility there that's not just 2 grandstands. I mean, this thing is a bowl in the heart of downtown Akron, and it's a lot better than Dick's Stadium they have out in Kent State. So, I mean, this is a phenomenal place. People love to go in there, and there's so many people that already live in Akron that'll just flow right into the city.
And Matt, you mentioned the Ohio State game. They got beat pretty bad with their schedule. First game they opened up, they played Auburn. They get beat by 50.
60-10.
They lose to Temple. Temple is usually kind of solid, I guess.
And
but
Temple blew them out too. I mean, these are FBF teams they're playing. That's just the point right there. Okay.
Yeah, they're playing Power 5 teams out of conference, and that hurts the record so much when you start the season. But it gives a lot of money to these programs, and that's why they do it. So we're taking Kent State across the board. Sorry to the Akron Zips, who actually more my hometown team. I feel odd taking Kent State over them. It's weird picking Kent State to win a football game, to be quite frank with you. But
sometimes
we'll see if we pick them 2 weeks in a row. We might, if they end up winning here, we might have to go looking at that game against Miami of Ohio to finish out the season. But how about we go down to Death Valley? Number 10 Wake Forest travels to take on the 7-3 Clemson Tigers, who are undefeated at their home turf this season. Clemson opened up as the favorite, -4.5. Being unranked against a top 10 team, they are the favorites.
This is going to be an insane game.
And we talked about it the last 2 days. I mean, the last couple of days on the show, it's going to be hard. I don't, this is a Clemson team that if they get this, they'll definitely be ranked. But I wouldn't, you could maybe argue they could be ranked now. And it's like you said, Alec, Death Valley. It's always tough to play there. I don't care. Even before Clemson got on this run they've been on, they've been sliding this year. They're still good at home, and they're still a good football team. It's just they haven't been what they are, and to the standard we've seen the last couple of years. But that's why I'm not making any picks. But that's what Wake Forest has to be concerned about when going into this game. Right,
and Mike, to your point, with Clemson 5-0 at home this season, they're on a 3-game win streak. But if they want a chance at the ACC Atlantic right now, they need to beat Wake Forest, and they need Wake Forest to lose to Boston College next week. Boston College last place in the Atlantic, so it's probably not going to happen. But this is controlling your destiny in time for Clemson. They need to win this game. Get to 8-3. You can't go 7-4 right now. I mean, that would just be an absolute killer to the season, finishing off 8-4. They need to have a very, very strong finish to this season and see what they can get out of it. This is their last ACC football game. They have South Carolina next week from the SEC to finish it out on the road. So this is a must-win game. That's a bad South Carolina team. So this is a chance that Clemson can finish off this season with a better record than a lot of people are going to give them credit for at 9-3. And they're going to have to hope Wake Forest loses, and that starts with this game right here to drop Wake Forest down to the same record, and the tiebreaker would go to Clemson.
Yeah, and it's a game that Clemson, like if they win this, definitely gets them in the top 25 for sure. And like you said, with the 3 losses, they could still get a good bowl game. It's not like they're completely out of the question. So get yourselves up there.
I'd rather be them than Penn State right now.
Well, yeah, a lot of teams would. But you beat South Carolina. South Carolina's still not a bad football team. They've played good against some good teams. So you win this week and you win next week to finish it out. You could still get yourselves out there and get a good bowl game.
Yeah, 100%. So why don't we go ahead and make picks here? Wake Forest or Clemson? Give me your thoughts.
I'm going to go Clemson here. They have a strong defense. Wake Forest does not have a defense, okay? And, I think, DJ, I'm not going to try and say his last name. We all know DJ. I think he's going to go off here. I think he's going to have a better controlled game. And, he's had better games. A lot of people watched those games earlier in the year, and he didn't look good at all. Now he's actually formed. Dabo Swinney's got him in the system. He's got him rolling. I think they're going to win this game. And, Brent Venables is probably one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. He knows what to do. Go ahead and ring it. I got Clemson.
Mike?
This one's tough, man.
It's tough.
This is one of the tougher ones of the weekends, but
a number of years I have hated Clemson, okay?
Well, I don't keep that in mind when I'm making picks, but
I know. But,
the line's 4.5. I kind of like Clemson to cover, honestly. I mean, what do you think with the points, Alec? I'm actually picking Clemson to win, but I kind of look at the points as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what here? My bell's staying quiet for this one. I've got Wake Forest. The one thing that I see with this team, they have no defense. But
they
how
can
do you
score.
beat defense
with
offense? Clemson doesn't have offense, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Even going up against a great defense, this team can't score. I mean, you saw their best game of the season was against UConn last week, and they put up 44. That was their season high, other than SC State in the FCS before, which I'm not counting at this situation. But before that, they had scored 30 points just twice this entire season against Florida State in Louisville. This offense, I don't care if they're going up against JV high school teams, they can't score the football, and that's the problem. Yeah, DJ's playing some good solid play, and they're doing just enough. just enough doesn't win you ACC championships. It doesn't win you top 25 football games. Wake Forest and Sam Hartman, they are going to run the wheels off of Clemson. They are going to put up 35 plus points, and Clemson cannot keep up. That's the one problem you've seen this season. Everyone goes, oh, well, should be a game they should run away with. They have a lot of stars on this offense. They got a lot of guys. They're starting to put things together. And what do you see? A 30 point game against Louisville just the other week. And yeah, that's an okay Louisville team, but Florida State the week before, you kidding me? That game should not be close. And Clemson, on the other hand, they don't have much of a defense either. This team is so incomplete and inconsistent. It reminds you of a worse version of Bo Nix and Auburn. And that's why I'm taking Wake Forest in this one. Okay. You've seen the way they've played. They had one down game. That is it. One down. You see Clemson, they've had about, 4 or 5 of them. You see this Wake Forest team, it doesn't matter. They are getting theirs. They are averaging 40-plus points per game this season. And I'm sorry, even if Clemson gets near that, they're not going to keep up with Sam Hartman.
Fair.
That's a fair statement.
I've got Wake. The only one taking I'm the only one not pulling for the upset of the top 10 team. Who would have guessed that one? But how about this? One of the most anticipated group of 5 matchups, the one we've been talking about for probably about 2 months. The SMU Mustangs travel to Cincinnati to take down the undefeated number 5 Bearcats. They're trying to store their college football playoff chances here. Cincinnati is a minus 11.5 point favorite in this one. And, I'm right there with them. This is a defensive unit that has been very physical, and they have been on top of their game all season long. This, though, it's a big game for the American Conference. If Cincinnati loses this game, it opens the door for that SMU team to potentially get in here the final stages of the season. If Memphis can pull the win over Houston, and if Connecticut can get the win over Houston as well, drop down these 2 top teams, because ECU could also potentially knock off Cincinnati if they were to lose here and ruin all momentum. So this is a huge point in the season, and these are 2 very, very tough, physical, fast football teams, and this is one of those games you look at and you just go, I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, I think we have been circling this one a little bit, because SMU is an 8-2 team, and they were ranked, Matt, and these probably are the best 2 teams in this conference.
Hey, no, Houston.
Absolutely.
Houston.
They had a couple.
2 of, I guess. Sorry.
Okay.
They
lost, don't count Houston.
Lost to Houston, 44-37, and then they lost to Memphis 28-25. Close losses here. They put up points in both of those losses, and they're gonna just have to do the same here against Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati is loaded. Okay, Desmond Ridder, their defense is good too. I mean, and then on top of that, you have Luke Fickell coaching, and that guy has a good head on his shoulders. I don't say that about too many coaches in this game, but he's one of them. And, I mean, it's going to take a lot for this SMU team to come in and win this game. I mean, you got to really look at this whole program, okay? They have been through a lot. They have been through all the violations. We know all the way back in the 80s, they cheated. They got the death penalty. They went through, not very good times, and they finally getting their program back up like this. Tremendous effort. So hats off to SMU finally coming back up into, modern day football. Like, hey, they're a competitive team again. I'd like to see what they can do and, moving forward and stuff like that.
And Matt, they've honestly been competitive the last couple of years, but
they have, yeah.
The 8-2 record this year.
Yeah, this is the main year where they're like, hey, we've been competitive the past couple of years, but this is the year we want to make a statement, and this is the game to do it. They have to come in and beat Cincinnati.
And this is the one I mean, I've been talking about. I don't remember about you guys,
I've been
but
talking about all season. This is
the one that we looked at with Cincinnati's schedule coming down the year since that Notre Dame game. This is the one that could potentially give them problems. But, I mean, they're at home. I mean, they haven't been playing themselves the last week or two, but they're still winning games. And they still have Desmond Ridder, and they still have all the talent they have around him and on their defense too. But, yeah, this, like I said, this 2 of the best teams in this conference, and they're playing late in the year. And I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, my thoughts in this one, it pretty much is 2 guys. You got Sauce Gardner on defense for Cincinnati, and offense, a guy who's projected to go in the first round, potentially to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Desmond Ridder, one of the best quarterbacks we've seen play. His development has been impeccable with Cincinnati. The way this guy has transformed himself and his body into a professional-esque quarterback. This guy has all the skills it takes to perform at the next level. I wish him the best of luck once he gets there. But his real toughest challenge is playing great a second time this season. He had to play great against Notre Dame. They had to pull out all the stops, and he had to be the best version of himself to win that one on the road. Now it's time to show that he deserves to be picked in the first round of the NFL draft in this coming season, playing perfect football again. He is going to have to go off. I actually have Cincinnati at a 14-point favorite in this one. I'm taking the Bearcats. I've got the Fighting Fickles. Desmond Ridder is about to show college football exactly who he is.
Mike, go ahead.
I don't think we're doing scores, but I got Cincinnati by 13.
Matt?
Yeah, I so want to go with the upset here.
Just do it.
Do it. You haven't done one.
No.
He took Clemson.
I think Ridder.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I did take Clemson. I think Ritter's going to run the table. I mean, you just gave the clear analysis right there. This is the game where he's going to be like, hey, this is the game where I'm going to, draft, up my draft stock more, and I'm going to play even better. And I mean, if they win this game, this is a big game. Okay, SMU has been ranked. They're 8-2. They're not a slouch team. If they beat them, they really have to consider putting them up into that top 4. Okay. They really have to.
And I mean, with Cincinnati, like I'm sure they're not happy with where they've been. I'm sure they're happy with moving up to 5 last week, because last week they didn't play as well. I mean, the week before, actually, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm sure they're happy with where they're at 5, but they want to be a playoff team. And if I'm sure with the 2 weeks that are left here, they know we have to win this one and we have to win our next one and our conference championship. So we need this stuff matters. We're this close to getting in. And we're right. We're 5th. We're one spot out. So we just got to win.
Well, guys, the biggest problem with Cincinnati is they need teams ahead of them to lose. They don't control their own destiny. They control it in the fact that they have to win out and win the American. But if they're on the outside looking in, they need other ones to lose. And the game they're counting on is the game we're about to talk about, a preview of the potential Pac-12 championship. Takes place Saturday, 7:30. The Oregon Ducks against the 7-3 Utah Utes in Utah. Utah opened as a 2.5-point favorite against a top 4 team. There's 2 upsets in the college football this week that are predicted via the spread so far, with Clemson beating Wake Forest, and then here with Utah beating the Ducks. And the biggest thing about this game, both of these teams are very physical, run the ball-esque systems with tremendous defensive lines, and both teams control the point of attack like they are ready for war. And this should be absolutely stunning, jaw-dropping, phenomenal. And I want the Ducks to run all over Utah.
Yeah, and you know what? This is one that kind of relates back to Cincinnati, like you were saying. And I even said this yesterday on the show. This is a weekend for Cincinnati. They need to win, obviously, but you have Ohio State that is going up against a team that they could lose, but I don't think they will. Oregon could lose, and Alabama could lose. They're all playing ranked opponents, and all stuff like that. This is a perfect weekend for Cincinnati. They just hope one of those teams loses and they win. So it's a big weekend for them.
Yeah, and obviously this Utah squad, they're ranked and they're ready to play here. And in conference, they're 6-1, and they've played some physical football. The big thing is, look at common opponents. Utah, they blew out UCLA. Oregon struggled against them. Utah blew out Stanford, the team that beat Oregon 52-7, dominated that one. The losses for this team have come against top teams. Against number 14 BYU in September 11th, they lost 26-17. They lost the following week in overtime against a one-loss San Diego State. Other than that, this team has been absolutely phenomenal, except against the team that's at second place to Oregon in the Pac-12, Oregon State, 42-32. They lost that one to near the end of October. So this is a game. Utah came off a game. They struggled against one of the worst teams in college football in Arizona. Their quarterback, Cameron Rising, he had 294 yards and 2 touchdowns, and TJ Pledger had 119 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. This is a running team, and that's how they win the football game. Riser saved them in that football game, because that is not what they're going to do every week. This is not a pass every team. You go to that Stanford game, they had 3 different guys run for over 100 yards in that game and combined for a total of 6 rushing touchdowns between those 3 guys alone. This is a run-heavy team, and I don't know if Oregon can stop that.
Well, Alec, if Oregon's able to do that, and like you said, you hope that they do run over them.
Yeah.
Does that change your thoughts on Oregon at all?
If Oregon blows out Utah, absolutely runs the table off of them like Ohio State did to Purdue, this is their Purdue game, and they have to win it. This is the one that proves any doubts wrong that, hey, this is a team that has beat you in the past. This has been a fun program this season. They have some big play ability, but they don't have necessarily superstars. This is that game for Oregon. If they can do what Ohio State did to Purdue in a similar manner, absolutely dominate it, show all facets of the game that I am in fact better than you are, then I would say Oregon. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with them being in the top 4. I don't know if I have them over Ohio State just yet because of what the rest of the season does. I'm not going to say one game makes you better than another team, but yeah, they're definitely in my book a top 4 team if they run the books off of Utah. But let's make predictions here. Let's go first.
Get that bell out. I think Utah's going to run the tables here, and I think they're going to beat Oregon, okay? It'd be a different story if they had their 2 top players, but they've barely kept into this season, okay? And you mentioned it earlier here, the Stanford team got blown out by Utah where they beat Oregon, okay? I know that was a while ago, but you have to look at that game. Like, Stanford took it to them and beat them, and then Utah they made Stanford look like Akron, okay? You have to look at that game, and I think they're going to move forward here. They're going to run off the tables against this Oregon defense. They're not going to be able to keep up, and I say they're going to pull it off. I got to go Utah.
I'm actually going Oregon in this one.
Yeah, I figured.
Why'd you figure?
Because you always go with the favorites. Well,
I don't.
That is definitely not what happens.
That is definitely not true.
Guys, the biggest thing to look in this game, Thibodeau is healthy. He is good, and he is potentially the best guy we've seen in college football this season defensively. He's a force of nature up there in the pack, and it is those head-to-head matchups that you have to look at across these 2 teams. They don't play much of the same teams. It really is UCLA and Stanford. Oregon got held close in both of those games while they were struggling to find an identity. The one thing we saw, Oregon just found their identity last week on the ground with Anthony Brown, 123 rushing yards for him, 98 rushing yards for Byron Carwell. Travis Dye had 88 rushing yards. They combined for 4 touchdowns. They just realized they win the game running the football. And when you get a team that just realized how they can win a football game, they become extremely dangerous. Utah knows how they play. They are designed to run the football. And if you take that away, you better hope Cameron Rising has his A game with him. And I don't think he can take apart an Oregon defense. You saw the way this defense played against the pass with a young injured Ohio State CJ Stroud. And they were able to hold him down for about 90% of that game. And despite the fact Stroud made that one a close one with, some help from the rest of his offense and phenomenal wide receivers and a legendary or to be legendary running back with Henderson. This is one of those games you circle for Oregon all season long. You knew it was going to be this one down at the end. They won the Pac-12 championship last year. That is why the Oregon Ducks are losing this football game. I'm taking the Utes here. They're just so physical running the football, man. They just get in there, punch it down your throats. I mean, when you get 3 guys all over in triple digits just 2 weeks ago, I don't know how you can look at this team and say, this isn't better. This is better than Oregon. Those losses came early for them, and I'm forgiving that at this point of the season because of how they've played it recently. 3-game winning streak, undefeated at home this season, 4-0. They're up and down on the road. Oregon 3-1 on the road. This is in Utah. That is why Utah is favored. They have figured out how to win a lot sooner. They have had, since that UCLA game, to really buckle up and get into it. They've had, 3 weeks to figure out how to beat Oregon. And I think they got the blueprint. I'm taking the Ducks' downfall here, and the Bearcats are moving up. I'm just saying, normally when upsets get hyped up, people roll with it, and it doesn't always happen. Well, guess we'll see. So I'm going Oregon. I'm just saying. Well, how about this one? One of the 3 undefeated teams left in college football gets to put their record on the line this week against the UAB Blazers, a team that is really shot out of nowhere. I mean, they didn't even have a program a few years ago, and since then, they've really turned things around, and they made this game just a -5.5 point favorite towards the UTSA Roadrunners, and it should be a quick, fast pick here. Give us your thoughts, Matt. I got to go to the UTSA Roadrunners. They've came out of really nowhere, so is UAB, but UTSA, we didn't even
who'd they beat earlier in the season? We were like, oh my gosh, they lost to that team, and now we're like, hey, that team's actually really good. Wasn't it Nebraska?
10 seconds. Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah,
They're
I just pulled it up. Yeah.
Illinois lost to them. That's horrible. I mean,
Right.
They're like, no, they're actually really good. And I mean, they've really bounced back. Yeah, they finally put them in the college football playoff pool, and I believe they deserve to be there. And I mean, that they're going to stay there because they're going to win this game.
Well,
And they beat a Memphis team that's normally.
Mike, why don't you take your pick here quickly? We got to move through.
Yeah, I'll go UTSA.
I got the Roadrunners as well. How about we move on? A few more games left on the schedule. Let's go quickly here as I pull this one up. The Ragin' Cajuns, 9-1, take on Liberty with a quarterback that could very easily go in the first round as well.
Yeah.
Loaded up with talent. Liberty, a 4-point favorite over a potentially could be ranked Ragin' Cajun squad who's 9-1. Only loss was the first game of the season to Texas. What are your guys' thoughts here? Who you got to win?
I got the Ragin' Cajuns here. They haven't looked back since that Texas loss, and they have kept moving forward. Now Texas is garbage. So, I mean, they don't really look at that game too much. It was a first game, and anything can happen in the first game. So,
Mike,
Liberty. So Liberty come up the right way? No,
wrong way.
Yeah, loser.
Well, Mike's not wrong here. It's going to be Liberty. You saw how they played against Ole Miss this last week. They were phenomenal. I mean, they held that one close. They had a chance to pull an upset there, and they'd be 8-2 in the rankings if they could. And I think it's just that tough game they're coming off of. They are favored. It's, I believe this one's in Liberty. I'm taking the Flames in this one. The next game on our slate here, Arizona State versus Oregon State, 7-3 Sun Devils. They're looking to stay in a hunt for the Pac-12 championship against the Oregon State Beavers. They need this win here because they're sitting right there in the race, and they're hoping for that Oregon win this week. So this is a very important game for the Pac-12 here. What are your guys' thoughts?
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll pick Oregon State, Matt.
Ooh.
Because they're I guess you could say they're underdog, even though they're at home. But you say I don't like picking upsets, so I'll pick Oregon State.
Well, I'm picking Oregon State too. Then go upset.
Well, you guys are both right. Oregon State, despite the fact they're 6-4, they are 5-0 playing at their home stadium. And Arizona State, they're about to get shell shocked and dropped. And Utah's about to secure their spot in the Pac-12 South Championship with a win or a loss here, in my opinion. So it's Oregon State's game to lose, and that brings us down one final game for the college football weekend. Should be a fun one to talk about here as the Virginia Cavaliers are looking to spoil the Pitt Panthers' chance at an ACC championship berth this Saturday, 3:30. Pitt is a minus 13-point favorite opening up here for the ACC coastal region. Virginia can sneak right in here and spoil Pitt's chances. Pitt's been perfect on the road. What are your guys' thoughts?
They have this one at home, Pitt does.
Yards.
Yeah. They've been perfect on the road, but this one's at home, so 4-2 there.
What'd you say, Matt?
Can you pick it 400, 500 passing yards? They're going to run the tables.
So you got Pitt, Matt. What about you, Mike?
Absolutely.
This one's tough. I know you've been hyping up this Virginia team, but I guess I'll go Pitt.
I'm taking Pitt as well. No chance Virginia has this one.
No chance.
Well, let's go ahead.
I'll say no chance, Matt. It's Pittsburgh. I remember that.
Okay.
It is Pitt, but this
Saturday.
is a game. Virginia's been so up and down. As long as Pitt plays well, they win this game. In the NHL, 7-4-3 New Jersey Devils trying to find their way back into the win column tonight with a win against the best team in the Atlantic Division, the Florida Panthers. What are your guys' thoughts going into the NHL right now? And any thoughts you have on the NHL season right now?
This season, it's a very interesting season. I mean, we're seeing teams that really haven't been there too much. I mean, kind of like Florida. I mean, Florida's run the tables. I mean, and that's why, I'm going to pick Florida in this game. They're too fast and they're good. Okay. They're awesome. But, I mean, it's better than last year. I mean, last year, no fans or anything like that. The playoffs were just kind of horrible. And, I mean, this year's just way better. Okay.
Well, and Matt,
I'm taking the Panthers too here, by the way. I'll just put that out there. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, Matt, so far it's been interesting because I mean, a lot of teams have had injuries.
Columbus
a lot of people
has bounced back,
and Pittsburgh had a lot of injuries, and it's hard to get through some stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's made the season good so far and pretty much unpredictable. It's hard to pick some of these games, but
yeah.
So that's why I'm gonna go New Jersey here. I'm gonna go New Jersey.
New
because
Jersey has been a tough team. They have in recent years they have been a thorn in the rear of teams.
I mean, and
including Pittsburgh.
Teams like the Devils level, they're a couple games over 500. When Pittsburgh beat them, they're a couple games over 500. So This team is beatable, but the difference is they're at home. But I'm still going to go with the Devils.
All right. Well, how about in the NBA? Washington Wizards sit in first place of the Eastern Conference, but they have a tough one against a team with a very similar record. The fourth place team in the East, the red hot Miami Heat. Tonight, 7:30. Heat are 6.5-point favorites at home. What are your guys' thoughts here?
Mike?
I'm just going to come out and give it. I'm going Wizards.
Ooh, yeah.
I think they're. I think at some point they'll slack off. You guys think you know my picks before I even say them.
Man, I had it written down already.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they're playing. I mean, eventually, I think they could slack off, but I think right now they're playing good basketball, and they're at home, correct?
No, Wizards are on the road.
Oh, I like them getting a big road win.
Oh.
Throwing Bradley Beal.
I'm taking Washington too in this one. I've been perfect on my pick so far in the NBA this week, so it'll probably go all wrong here. The Miami Heat will take this one over on me, but I'm liking this Wizards team. This is something we haven't seen out of them in recent history. I mean, they've had all the talent in the world, and they hadn't been able to put anything together with Bradley Beal and John Wall. They were kind of just basically sitting average for so long. They've really had a bounce back here with guys like Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdia. I mean, they're really getting a nice young core together, and I'm really liking the way this Washington team is going, and they're on a huge win streak right now, so I'm taking the Wiz.
I gotta go Miami here. I mean, I like this Washington team. I think they're
Matt
young.
loves Miami. It's like Mike picking Dallas. We know it's going to happen.
But I mean,
no, you're not wrong.
This Miami team. I mean, they have three guys that can easily score 20 points per game. And Jimmy Butler and Tyler Herro. I mean, even you throw Victor Oladipo in there too. I think they're more experienced. They're veterans. It's a veteran team, and I think that's what's going to win the game. But this Wizards team, they're young, and they're going to be a team in upcoming years that are going to be like, hey, we're just going to make a run at the finals.
Right, man. Every time we've talked about Heat basketball, you've picked them all but one so far, and that's the one game they lost. That's the one game they won as well. So you've been rolling with the Heat all season. We'll see if you can pick up another win here. But, Wizards, they're in a good spot right now. They just have to hold on. And let's get into another football game here for tonight, Thursday night football. The New England Patriots are hunting for the AFC East title. They're a half game back of the Buffalo Bills. So they're hoping for a Bills loss this week and a win tonight over the 4-5 Atlanta Falcons, who are sitting last place of the NFC South, but just 2 games behind the defending champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this is a game I don't think you just overlook, because Falcons, they're in a place that they can still go for a hunt right now, and they've been picking up steam.
They have been picking up steam. They bounced back from earlier in the season. I mean, you have to give them credit for that, but Mac Jones, man, he's insane. This whole offense has been clicking, okay? And that's really hats off to Bill Belichick, okay? The guy really knows what he's doing, okay? We'll just put it like that.
Yeah, that's for sure, Mike.
I've heard some analysts breaking down this game on ESPN and some other networks this morning. A lot of people are picking the Patriots. I'm going to pick the Patriots too, but it seems pretty split back and forth that they're going to say, people are saying it's a blowout, people are going to say it's a close game. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't see a blowout happening because New England's on a short week. They got to travel as well. But I think they're playing better football right now. And I like the way Atlanta's picked themselves up. They got blown out last week. I know they're home tonight, but I think New England's playing better football right now.
Well, Mike, on that point, I don't think I can pick against the Patriots after what they did to my Brownies this past weekend. So, I'm taking the Patriots here, and Mac Jones, he has really turned himself into a star in this system. And, everyone said it with Brady. It's a system quarterback. There's nothing wrong with being a system quarterback. If that system turns you into the GOAT, I don't think Tom Brady once complained about being in a system that put him in the status of the greatest of all time. And Mac Jones can really be the next man to step up into that shoe of, hey, let's continue to run the table with this New England team. Bill Belichick is, if he can turn Mac Jones into the next version of Tom Brady and win a Super Bowl with Mac Jones, unquestionable in my mind, he is one of a elite category of coaches in the NFL. If he's not there already, most people's mind, because he's been carried by Brady his entire career, or so people would like to say. If he can win with Mac Jones and they win the AFC East in the first or second year with Mac Jones, unquestionably in my mind, this is a top 3 coach all time in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. It's not even a question. I mean,
I'm picking I'm going to pick the Patriots here, but I mean, I'm excited for this Patriots team. I really am. I like their team, but I'm also scared, okay, because I like Buffalo, okay? And Buffalo's like, everybody's like, oh, Buffalo's going to run this division. It's their division now. No Brady. Just hold on here, okay? I mean, it's Bill Belichick. This guy
Closing the gap, Matt. Closing the gap.
This guy has owned you for the past 2 decades, okay? He's not just going to lay down and just accept defeat like that, okay? They're not going to –
Yeah, there was no rolling over and showing their bellies to their enemies here. They were loading up quietly under the radar, and here comes Billy B
scared.
and the New England Patriots for the Buffalo Bills.
And they had that big offseason, too, the Patriots, to sign all them guys defensively and offensively, and they went out and got some – Mac Jones some decent weapons. You got to do that when you have a young quarterback. And
yeah.
So,
well, how about we finish off the show with something I've been trying to get to past few days, but we haven't been able to do any. Haven't had time. We got a little time today. How about them Cavaliers, baby? I mean, they lost a tough one last night to the Nets, but it was a fun one to watch. They're getting some great play. Jetty Osman is now top 10 in Cleveland Cavaliers history from the 3-point range, which to me was absolutely shocking. But he's had a great season off the bench, and the Cavs, while playing through a lot of injuries, they still managed to play one close against the Nets, and that's what I love to see.
Wait till they get everybody back. Wait till they get marketing back. Wait till they get Love back coming from the bench. Sexton, Mobley, Allen.
I mean, you just mentioned our like 6 of our top 8 players are out. So,
Alec, here's the thing:
fact that they're playing this tough is great.
Close basketball, and they beat Boston a couple of nights ago.
Right.
You know, you lose Boston the other night. It's hard to beat a team back to back like that.
Before. I mean,
you beat them once, you lose once. I'm fine. And last night they were getting beat pretty bad. Last night they only come back and lose by 10. And you had no
down 20-3 to start the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, not start. I mean, to open the second half, they were down like 23, something like that.
Oh, okay.
And they come back and lose by 10. And no shot at any of the players that they're starting, but you're starting Ed Davis at center, and you're starting Dean Wade at power forward. I mean, and they still found a way to get done.
Dean Wade had some good plays, but he's not a starting guy.
No. And I mean,
he's a role player, and sometimes you have to elevate role players and hope they can perform at that level for a week. I mean, you've seen it with the Cavs. They've had a guy able to go off for a week, and then he fades back into non-existence, basically. And that's where Jetty Osman really has been. You know, he'll go crazy for a week, and then he'll be quiet for 2 months. You kind of saw that with Kevin Porter Jr. when he was with the Cavs last season. Larry Nance would do that. I mean, it just seems to be a thing with Cleveland. The role player, they can play well, but not for extended periods of time. They're going to need to get their guys back. And maybe find a new trainer. Everyone's getting injured.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the last 3 years, gosh, you can't get anything going.
During when all these players have been injured, we've seen guys like Denzel Valentine putting up some great play, okay? And then I think they need to bring up Kyle Guy from the Charge.
They were talking about that.
Get him in there with Windler. Windler can shoot too, and then get them under the tutelage of Osman, who you just said now leads the Cavs in 3-pointers?
Top 10 all time.
Yeah.
Top 10.
He passed Mo Williams last week.
Okay.
He passed one of my favorite guys in Mo Williams. I loved when he played there.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Even when he came back.
Yeah.
But put him under the tutelage of Osman. Those guys are going to shoot some buckets. Okay.
And we'll see, because
Guy was already doing it at Virginia when he won national championship.
Oh yeah, he was one of the best 3-point shooters coming out. And one of the big things I love to see with Jetty Osman is everybody talking. He was the guy that took over for Kyle Korver. He took over that role, and I don't think people have realized he's actually taken over that role quite well. He took all of the shooting. You watch Jetty Osman play the game, and you can't tell me he is not a very similar-esque style to Kyle Korver. They play a very similar game. When those two guys played together, they were learning from one another. Jetty Osman brought over that, EuroLeague style of play where he can go down and be physical underneath and drive and make some big plays, play good, solid defense. But now he's added that 3-point ability into his arsenal with Kyle Korver. He's improving from the free throw line, and you've seen it now, top 10 all time with the Cavaliers in 3-point shooting. This guy is on his way to being, an all-time Cavs great that I don't think people are really even going to realize.
Yeah, and we'll see when we get Allen back, because he has an illness.
He's been one of my favorite guys since they brought him in. Everyone's like,
I know that. Yeah,
I think we even all kind of said maybe at the beginning of the season, like, Jetty doesn't seem to be working out. We all love him, but maybe not. He's working out just fine. I'm fine with Jetty Osman taking all the time he needs to perform.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, that's going to do here for the Casual Sports Podcast. We will see you all tomorrow as we do the NFL preview. I'm Alec, that's Matt, and Mike over there. We'll see you tomorrow.